Have you ever been in a conversation, maybe with a family member, a neighbor, or even someone at the grocery store, where something they said just didn't sit right with you? Not because they raised their voice or used a harsh word, but because of the way they dismissed you. Like your thoughts didn't matter, like your presence didn't carry the same weight it once did. You might have walked away smiling politely, but deep down, it left a little bruise. A silent one. At this stage in life, many of us thought the battles would slow down. We've raised children, built careers, made sacrifices, and learned more about love and loss than words could ever fully express. And yet, disrespect still finds its way in. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's loud, but it never feels good. What do you do when someone disrespects you, not just once, but again and again? Do you lash out? Do you stay quiet? Do you carry it with you, letting it weigh you down long after the moment has passed? That's where something ancient comes in, something quietly powerful. No, this isn't about pretending not to feel or becoming some emotionless rock. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's about how we feel, how we think, and most importantly, how we respond. It encourages us to live with purpose, with clarity, and with grace, even when the world around us doesn't. Today, I want to gently walk with you through some of the most practical and life-changing principles that can help us face disrespect, not with bitterness, but with wisdom. Whether it comes from a stranger, a loved one, or even your own inner voice, these ideas aren't just for philosophers in robes. They're for you, sitting in your chair, sipping your tea, wondering how to protect your peace in a noisy world. Let's start where all strength begins, with calm. When someone disrespects you, especially unexpectedly, the first wave that hits is emotional: anger, hurt, confusion. And it's normal. But the truth is, the event itself isn't what upsets us. It's how we think about the event. One ancient teacher put it beautifully. People are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them. Think about that. The words someone says don't have power on their own. It's the meaning we give them that stings. So the first step, truly, is to breathe. Not just figuratively, but really, pause and take a breath. When your mind wants to jump to defense or replay the scene over and over, pause instead. Don't hand over your peace so quickly. Their words might be sharp, but they don't define who you are. You get to choose what you hold on to and what you let go. Now, once the moment has passed and your heart has settled a little, that's when the second principle becomes your friend: self-reflection. This part isn't always easy. It takes courage. But if we want to grow, we must look inward first. Ask yourself, did I contribute to that tension in any way? Not in a way that blames you for someone else's bad behavior, but in a way that helps you see clearly. Is there a grain of truth in what was said? If so, maybe there's something to learn. And if not, perhaps it's just their own pain leaking out. Someone once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." That quote has always stayed with me. It reminds me that no matter what others say or do, my peace begins with me, and that peace is worth protecting. Sometimes reflecting on yourself helps you respond better the next time. Other times it simply reminds you that not everything needs a response at all. But let's be honest. There are moments when it's not just one comment or a bad day, it's repeated disrespect over time, and it wears you down. That's when this third principle becomes essential. Learn to pause, not just for a breath, but for control. Someone once warned us, "Whenever you are angry, be assured that it is not only a present evil, but that you have increased a habit." What does that mean? It means that every time we let our anger drive the wheel, we're strengthening that reaction for next time. It becomes easier and easier to snap back, and harder to choose grace. But when we pause, even for a few seconds, we create space. Space to think. Space to remember who we are. And space to ask, what would be the wisest response here? Not the most satisfying in the moment, but the most helpful in the long run. Sometimes the wisest thing is a gentle boundary. Sometimes it's silence. And sometimes, yes, it might be walking away. Pausing isn't weakness. It's strength with intention. And while we're talking about people and their actions, let me gently offer this. The people who hurt us are often hurting themselves. Not always, but often. That's where empathy comes in. And I know that word can be hard to swallow when you've been deeply hurt. But empathy doesn't mean excusing bad behavior. It means choosing to see the fuller picture. Maybe that family member snapped at you because they're overwhelmed. Maybe that young cashier who ignored your presence was dealing with her own storm. And maybe, just maybe, someone disrespected you not because of who you are, but because of what they haven't yet figured out in themselves. When you can view others through a lens of compassion, something inside you softens. It doesn't make you naive. It makes you free. Because you're not tied to their behavior anymore. You see it for what it is, and you rise above it. Now, I know these aren't quick fixes. This isn't about pretending things don't hurt. It's about what you do after they hurt. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Just breathe, reflect, pause, and then respond. Not as the wounded, but as the wise. So if today you felt dismissed, or recently someone made you feel like you didn't matter, remember this: your worth isn't up for debate. And your response? That's where your power lives. Let's keep walking this path together. There's more to explore, and we're just getting started. When we begin to see that our power lies in how we respond, not how others behave, everything starts to shift. Suddenly, the burden isn't on the world to treat us kindly every moment. It's on us to stay centered, no matter what life throws our way. That's not easy, but it's where strength is born. One of the most powerful ways to stay rooted is to concentrate on virtue. External things, money, reputation, even approval from others, come and go. But our character? That's ours to build, ours to protect. Think about a time when someone deeply offended you. Maybe they questioned your ability, your memory, or made you feel irrelevant because of your age. In those moments, it's tempting to react from pride or pain. But true strength calls us to something greater, not to win the argument, but to win our inner battle. And that's a battle for integrity. What would a wise person do here? That's a question you can always return to. Would they snap back? Would they stew on it for days? Or would they respond with dignity, speak truth if needed, and walk away when the moment has passed? Virtue doesn't mean you have to be passive. It means being deliberate, grounded. It means choosing courage when you want to hide, choosing calm when you want to explode, choosing truth even when it's hard. In a world that too often rewards noise, living with quiet virtue becomes its own kind of rebellion. And it's one that brings peace. Still, I know that even with all the wisdom in the world, there are times when things just hurt. The disrespect lingers, and you feel it pulling on your peace like a weight you didn't ask to carry. That's when another principle comes forward, one that may be the hardest to accept and the most liberating. Acceptance. There's a deep calm that comes from understanding what you can control and what you can't. This idea is known as the dichotomy of control, and it's beautifully simple. You can't control other people, not their moods, not their opinions, not their tone. But you can control your own mind, your actions, and your reactions. Now, this doesn't mean we roll over when mistreated. It means we stop giving our peace away to things we were never meant to carry. If someone speaks harshly to you, you don't have to agree. You don't have to absorb it. You can let it pass through you, like wind through an open window, without letting it knock anything over inside. One of my favorite quotes says, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Sometimes what we don't have is an apology we deserve, a recognition we longed for, a sense of fairness. But what we do have is today, and the power to choose peace over bitterness. When you start accepting what you cannot change, you stop wrestling with shadows. And suddenly, you're free to focus on the light. Speaking of light, let me offer you something a little unexpected. Humor. It might seem strange to talk about humor in a conversation about disrespect, but laughter has a magic to it. Not the kind that mocks or belittles, but the kind that lightens the heart. When someone disrespects you in a petty way, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is smile, not out of sarcasm but out of clarity. As if to say, I see what this is, and I choose not to carry it. Someone once said it well. You have mastered yourself when you know how to deal with what you should not take seriously. There's wisdom in not making everything heavy. Some things really aren't worth your energy. And when you can chuckle, shrug it off, or tell yourself a small joke that reminds you to keep perspective, you're not losing control. You're claiming it. Imagine being at a family dinner and someone makes a snide remark. Instead of stewing, you respond with a light-hearted, kind jab that eases the tension. Or maybe you just smile, knowing that some comments say more about the speaker than about you. Humor won't solve every situation, but it can soften many of them. And for you, it might just make the difference between a bitter evening and a peaceful one. But I want to be clear, this isn't about ignoring bad behavior. It's about choosing how to respond with strength and clarity. That's why another key part of this journey is learning how to set boundaries. You see, staying calm doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean letting people walk all over you while you pretend not to feel a thing. That's not strength. That's suppression. Real strength is calm, but firm. Compassionate, but clear. You can love someone and still say, that wasn't okay. You can be kind and still say, I won't accept being spoken to like that. Setting boundaries is about honoring your own dignity. When you tell someone what's acceptable and what's not, you're not starting a fight. You're protecting peace. Not just yours, but sometimes theirs too. Because clarity, more often than not, reduces confusion. And with confusion out of the way, respect has room to grow. It can be as simple as saying, I'd like to continue this conversation when we're both calm. Or, I hear what you're saying, but I won't tolerate being insulted. These words don't come from anger. They come from self-respect, from wisdom. And if you're worried you'll seem too assertive, let me say this. You've lived long enough to know what you deserve. Speak it. What's beautiful about this approach is that it doesn't ask you to pretend disrespect didn't happen. It simply invites you to meet it with something stronger. Not force, not rage, but clarity, kindness, and firmness that says, I know who I am, and I don't need your approval to prove it. Let's take a breath together right here. If any of this has stirred something in you, that's okay. It means you're still growing, still learning, still rising. And that journey continues. When you begin to stand tall in your own values, when you draw your boundaries with calm conviction and speak with clarity, not anger, something remarkable happens. You no longer feel like a victim of disrespect. You begin to see yourself as the author of your response. And that shift alone can change the tone of your relationships and even the course of your day. But here's something else that matters deeply, perhaps more than we admit, especially as we grow older: forgiveness. Now, I understand, forgiveness isn't always easy. Sometimes, the wounds are still fresh. Other times, they're so old, you wonder why they still ache. A comment someone made years ago, a cold shoulder that never warmed again, a betrayal that changed everything. You may have pushed it aside, but every now and then, it still stirs. Forgiveness isn't really for the other person, it's for us. It's about releasing ourselves from the weight of resentment, the bitterness that slowly erodes our peace. Think of forgiveness not as forgetting or excusing the behavior, but as refusing to let it poison your spirit. We cannot control how others behave, but we can always choose how we respond. Forgiveness is one of those responses. It's an act of strength, not surrender. It says, "I will not let your actions determine my peace." And it frees you. It opens a door where healing can walk in. Maybe that person never apologized. Maybe they still don't understand how they hurt you. That's hard, I know. But the gift of forgiveness doesn't depend on them. It depends on your willingness to choose light over darkness, compassion over anger, peace over punishment. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to let someone back in. It means you're clearing the space in your own heart so you can breathe again. It means moving forward lighter than you were yesterday. And that, my friend, is a gift worth giving yourself. Now sometimes, even after we've reflected, forgiven, and stood our ground, disrespect still stings. That's when it helps to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. To shift your perspective. Someone once wrote, "Our life is what our thoughts make it." In other words, how you interpret the moment shapes your entire experience of it. So if someone disrespects you, pause and ask yourself, does this moment really define me? Does this opinion truly matter in the larger story of my life? Picture your life like a wide, flowing river. Each encounter, kind or unkind, is a stone tossed in. Some make bigger splashes than others, but they all pass. They sink, and the river keeps flowing. Don't let a single rude word stop your current. Don't give a small person the power to reroute your peace. Often, what looks like disrespect is actually someone else's pain in disguise. Their harsh words, a reflection of their own frustration. Their coldness, maybe it's rooted in fear or a sense of inadequacy. It doesn't make the behavior acceptable, but it does remind you that it's not about you. And here's something powerful. When you change your perspective, you stop asking, "Why did they treat me like that?" and start wondering, "What can I learn from this?" Maybe it teaches you patience, or discernment, or reminds you of your own strength. Every moment becomes a chance to grow wiser, calmer, better. By the time we reach this season of life, our 60s, 70s, even 80s, we've seen a lot. We've been loved deeply and perhaps hurt just as deeply. We've known silence where there should have been connection, and we've seen kindness in places we never expected. Through it all, we've grown. And here's what I want you to remember, with every part of your being, you are not defined by the way others treat you. You are defined by how you carry yourself, how you choose to show up each day, and the strength you show even when no one else notices. This isn't about hiding your emotions, it's about managing them with wisdom. It's about pausing, reflecting, choosing virtue, and living from the inside out, not the outside in. And that, dear friend, is something you've already been doing, maybe without even knowing it. If you've ever kept your cool when someone tried to provoke you, that's real strength. If you've ever chosen kindness instead of bitterness, you've lived with true virtue. If you've forgiven someone who never asked for it, just so you could sleep easier at night, you've already been walking a wise and powerful path. So today, let this not be just a lesson, but a reminder. A reminder that you have everything within you to face disrespect, not with anger, but with grace. Not with silence, but with wisdom. You've earned the right to live in peace. Don't hand that peace over to anyone who hasn't earned your trust. I hope you'll take a moment now to reflect on what resonated with you. Maybe even share your thoughts or a personal story in the comments below. This channel is a place where wisdom and experience are honored, and your voice is always welcome here. If this video offered you even one small piece of clarity or calm, I'd be so grateful if you gave it a thumbs up. It helps us reach more people who are walking the same path. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. We share more content like this, gentle, grounded, empowering lessons that remind us how to live fully, with purpose, at any age. Here's to living with dignity, walking with wisdom, and standing tall no matter what comes your way. Because you deserve that, and so much more. Take care, and until next time, stay steady, stay strong.